Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to Manny School of Art. I am your host, Manny Ramos, and we are doing our first video for 2023. In this video, we're going to cover the element of line, some of the characteristics of line, and some of the uses of line. At the end of the lesson, we are actually going to use the element of line to create a very simple illustration using white paper and ink. It's a good way to practice using this element and to maybe get you to think how to use it in perhaps different ways than you had before. As always, if you like what you're seeing, please let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe, and if there's something that you would like to see, go ahead and leave me a comment, and we'll see if we can make it happen. Alright, let's go ahead and get started with the main video. So the element of line, it's actually a pretty easy element to learn, but it's often overlooked or neglected. So in this tutorial, what I want to do is I want to go a little bit deeper into the element of line, what the characteristics of line, and how to use them in your artwork. Take a look. Let's take a closer look at the element of line. So what is a line? A line is nothing more than a point that moves from one spot to another. So for example, if I start here and I end here, this is the beginning of a line, and where it stops, that's the end of a line. Okay? It doesn't always have to be straight. So for example, I can start here and I'm going to stop at that same spot right there. So both of these are considered lines. One is straight, one is curved, but it starts in one spot and it ends at another. A line is formed when you take a tool, any type of tool like this pencil, and you start putting marks on whatever type of surface you're working on. So for example, in this case, we're using a pencil and we are working on paper. So pencil's the tool, paper is the surface. But let's say that I was working on a canvas, then the tool might be a brush instead of a pencil, or it could be charcoal. If I was working on wood, I could either use a wood burning tool to create my lines, or I can actually carve them out with a carving tool. So lots of different ways to create lines on all kinds of different surfaces. Lines have direction. So I've taken a compass and I made a little circle and I marked up 0, 90, 180, and 270. 0 always faces the top. So any line that is flowing from 0 towards the 180 mark is referred to as a vertical line. Any line that is flowing in the direction from 90 to 270 is referred to as a horizontal line. And any line that falls in between that, anywhere between those points, all of these lines are referred to as diagonal. Okay? Now these lines represent the flow of the line. They don't always have to be straight. So for example, I could be going in this direction with a wavy line, but the general flow of the line is diagonal. Just like if I was going up like so with a broken line, the general flow of that line would be vertical, and so forth. Lines have weight. So the weight of the line simply means how thick or how thin the line is. So for example, I can make lines that are relatively thin, like this. Or I can make a line that is much thicker. Lines can have varying weight. So for example, I can take a line that starts off really thin, gets thicker, and then goes back to thin. Lines can be continuous, or they can be broken. That's called the movement of the line. Lines can also be implied. So for example, if I take a sheet of paper like so and place it here and draw some lines perpendicular to it, when I remove this sheet of paper, our eyes will see this area right here as a line as well, even though we didn't actually draw it in. So these are real lines going this way, and this is an implied line this way. Lines can also be very, very sharp and crisp, or they can be soft and diffused. They could be very angular, very geometric, or they could be a little bit more free-flowing, more curved, more natural. So those are just some of the characteristics of line. Now, when we're making art, we use lines to do all kinds of things. For example, we can use lines to write. Right? Anytime that you are writing, you are working with the element of line. Okay? We can, of course, use it to draw whatever it is that you're drawing. Sometimes we use them temporarily as a guide. So let's say I'm drawing a face here. I can put a temporary line here, known as a guideline, to help me line up the eyes and the nose and stuff. Okay, so not all lines are going to be permanent. We can use it to create different effects. So let's say, for example, that I wanted to create the suggestion of a circle. I could start off with a very faint line, thicken the line on this side, and back to thin here. I'll thicken this a little bit more to suggest weight on this side right here. So this side of this shape looks thicker or heavier than this side, which is much more delicate. We can use lines to suggest texture. So let's say, for example, that I want to create a feather. I'll start off with a line that varies in weight, and then start putting in additional lines to suggest the feather, or it could be a leaf. We can use lines to create patterns. So let's say, for example, that I was doing a brick wall. I'll do some horizontal lines, and then using vertical lines, I can create my pattern. I can use lines to suggest dimension. So if I start off with a horizontal line and have some lines that are coming towards me, and then in the center some real skinny lines, and as they come towards me they get bigger and a little thicker, and that gives the illusion of depth. I can use lines to suggest shadows or value. So let's say, for example, that I have something that looks similar to a box. And I want this side to be darker. I can just throw in a few lines to suggest that this side is darker. If I wanted to, I could throw some lines this way and throw some additional lines here to create 3 different values with lines. And of course, we can combine these things together to suggest even more detailed stuff. So for example, if I was doing a tree, I can make the trunk here, just using a variety of lines. And then for the canopy, I can scribble, which is another form of line. And basically just broken curved lines. And the list goes on and on and on and on. Now that we've done going over the element of line and some of the basic characteristics, let's go ahead and actually put it to use. So I'm going to show you an exercise, and this can be done very simply like this, where you can draw a square or a rectangle and break it up into segments. But if you want to make it more interesting, to draw a basic animal, whatever animal you choose, and break those animals up into smaller segments like I've done here. Then get yourself some sort of a marker. It doesn't really matter what brand, and ideally you want to have 2 different tip sizes, but if all you have is a small one, that's fine. Okay? And then all you're going to do is in each one of these segments, you are going to try to come up with different styles of lines or different combinations of lines. So I'm going to go ahead and get this started so you can see how it's done, and then I'll be back at the end to show you more of a finished product. So on this first one, all I'm doing is using horizontal lines. Very simple. And then I'll move on to the next one. Now your challenge is to get creative with this and to not repeat the same design over and over again. So like on this next one here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a radiating pattern, and I'm going to color in every other line to make it look like the line is varying in weight. So I'll do a couple of these and then speed through it. So if all you have is a small tip like this one here, then you just draw the outlines and fill them in. And one of the reasons that I like doing this in ink is because when you do this and you fill them in like so, it actually does look like one solid line. So thick here, thin here. And that is using weight. And remember, you want to use a lot of different things here. So get creative with this. If you're not sure if it's going to work, do it out here, right? Because at the end we're going to cut the background away anyways. So if you're not sure, give it a try out here. So on the next one, and I'm just showing you some of the ones that I've already done, but you do not have to do the same ones I'm doing. You can come up with your own. So in this little area right here, I did what is called a concentric. So that means it starts, think of it like a maze. As it goes in, it just keeps getting smaller, smaller and smaller. And you're just going to keep going. Don't be afraid to use combinations. So for example, I'll do one more that has a combination of lines. And remember that dots are considered lines because they're the beginning of a line segment. So I'm going to do this here first. I'm going to fill those in. When you fill them in, to really make them look like one solid line, make sure that you try to get rid of any of the white paper that's showing through, if you're doing a thick line. Obviously, if you're doing those type of lines there where they're individual thin lines, you leave the white paper showing between them. There. And then what I did on that one is I did circles or dots going around it. So I'm going to switch, and I'm just going to press. Now, if you don't have a big marker like this, then you just draw the little circles and fill them in. And I'm just going to keep going on and on and on until I have this in all of these segments filled in with different types of lines, different styles of lines, different combination of lines. All right, let's take a moment here and take a look at our progress. So as you can see, what I'm doing is every one of these segments has a completely different use of lines. Some lines are in combination, some lines are varying in weight, some lines are straight, some lines are curved, and so forth and so on, just like we did in the video before. Once you're done, what you want to do is you want to get an X-Acto knife or a pair of scissors, cut this out, and attach it to a black background like this. And I like to use the black background because it really creates really nice contrast between the image and the background. Now, if you want to, you can add additional designs in the background as well. And you can do that one of two ways. You can either cut out pieces of paper that'll fit into this area and add additional designs, or if you have a white pen or a white pencil, you can actually do your designs directly onto the background. Okay. So I hope this tutorial was helpful. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up, a share, and don't forget to subscribe. All right, we will get you on the next tutorial. Thanks for watching.